Okay, this is not going to be a super great video because I'm holding it with one hand and I will write with the other, so don't judge my handwriting. But we're talking about the number line and its notation. So the number line symbol, right, the first one we have is an open dot. And the meaning of that open dot is that the number is not included. Okay, so it's not in the group chat with your friends, you know, it's not included. Nobody wants to be friends, which is not nice, but this number is not included within your answer. More will be spoken about that at a later date, but for right now, it's good to know that it is not included. Inequality, all right, inequality symbols for this is less than or greater than. For the most part, we will just use the less than symbol because our bigger numbers are always going to be on the right side. Interval notation, we use round brackets if they're not included. I know they look like parentheses and you're super right? We use parentheses all the time. But in the case of when we're talking about intervals and we're explaining what's happening where, let's use the words round bracket. Next up, we got closed dot. We have seen before. Make sure it's all the way shaded in. This number is included. It is part of the group chat. It is part of the friend group, okay? It is included. It is the best, all right? Again, still should be nice, but in this case, the closed dot is included within your answer. And once again, we will talk more about that actually in notes 4.1. Now, when it's included, it is less than or equal to, and that's what this little half equal sign is that or equal to, or we might have greater than or equal to. But for the most part, once again, we will use the less than or equal to sign because all of the numbers that are on the right will end up being bigger. Okay, so the mouth is always eating the bigger side. When we talk about this, I will use not so formal math language. I will say this is mouth or mouth with a half equal sign. When we get to our interval notation, we use square brackets. Please make sure they look like square brackets and not like not square brackets, because I have beautiful young people that try to do kind of something like this, little round, little square, just because they're not sure. I will automatically mark that as wrong. That's a no, 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 no. Okay? Now, number next, sometimes the arrow will be shaded on a number line, okay? And if that arrow is shaded, that means we're dealing with infinity, right? Because arrows go on forever and ever and ever. Now, if it's going towards the negatives, it's negative infinity. If it's going towards the positive, it's positive infinity. And if you need help with writing infinities, watch that on repeat until you got it. Now, infinities go on forever. They keep going, they're running away, never getting caught, and therefore they are not included, okay? Once again, not in the friend group, but this time infinities are choosing not to be because they keep running away with that arrow. All right, so not included. Now, again, right now here, this is not going to make sense until we start doing our examples, but for intervals, the symbols are outside of their numbers, and there's a comma in between. Inequalities, the symbols are inside of their numbers, and there's an X in between. Now, for today, it's an X, right? Because we're technically using the X-axis, okay? When we start talking about, you know, domain and range, then it depends on if you're looking at the X or the Y-axis, all right? Okay, number next. So we got all this going on. Now let's put it into action. So we're going to start with number line to notation. So I'm going to use two different colors just to represent the two different dots that we're looking at. Colors are always going to match. So here we go. Here's this first one. If you don't have a copy of the notes, you are always welcome to draw it out. So in this first one here, we have an open dot at this -3. And on the other side, we also have an open dot at this +3. So when we read, we go from left to right. So starting on the left, we started with an open dot of -3. Okay, now the interval symbol for that from up here, if it's open, it's one of these round brackets, and it's going to be on the outside of its number, which is what we wrote here. Symbols are on the outside, and there's a comma between. So I'm going to make a comma happen. All right, then we end at a 3, and again, it's another open dot, so it's going to be a round bracket. Now, when I do the inequality for this particular problem, right, still left to right, okay, boop, inequality, I'm going to start with that -3. The symbol's on the inside, and the inequality symbol is just the mouth, right, the less than sign, less than. Now, technically, this is technically the x-axis, all right, so that's why we have an x in between. And then we ended with a +3, and again, it was an open dot, so I need to use the inequality that matches, which in this case is the less than sign or just the mouth. All right, there we go. Sorry that the camera's jumpy. All right, next, we got an open dot, and then we got a closed dot. So because of that, we start with a -1 and a round bracket because it's open, comma in between these, and then we go to a 2, but this time it's closed, so we use a square bracket, very obviously square. When we do the inequality, we got -1 with just less than or just the mouth, x in between because technically we are using the x-axis, and then we got, sorry, I know you guys can't see right now, we got the mouth with the line because it's a closed dot at 2. Okay, so make sure that you are following slow and steady, one step at a time, especially with how monotone my voice is sounding right now. All right, in this next one, we start with a closed dot, and then our next one is also, oops, a closed dot. Okay, so we start with that -5 because we go from left to right, square bracket. Commas are always between intervals. And then we end up with a -2 in the square bracket because it's included, it's closed. Because of the closed dots, we are using these square brackets. All right. Next problem, or I'm sorry, the inequality side, same thing, except we start with the -5 and our symbol's on the inside, so it's the mouth with the equal sign or the less than or greater to. X in between to separate out the pieces, because technically we're using the x-axis. And then we use the less than or equal to, or the mouth with the half equal sign with that -2. Again, symbols are in between here. All right, this next one is a little scary because there isn't a dot when you start. Technically, we have a shaded arrow here. Okay, and if we have a shaded arrow, it's going to be one of the infinities, and then we have an open dot. So this infinity is going towards the negatives, so it's negative infinities, and infinities are never included. They don't want to be part of your friend group, which is not nice. And then we have this one here, open dot, so we use a round bracket. The inequality for this, same thing. Is another way of showing this that you will learn later in my classes. And if you have different teachers, they will show you the other way as well. But I like showing the negative infinity to less than sign because infinities are not included, they are open. To, in this case, a 1, which was an open dot, so I use the less than sign or just the mouth. Next one here, we have starting with a closed dot, and it goes until the arrow, so I'm going to put arrow here. I just realized I did my colors backwards. How rude. So we have a closed dot at -1, square bracket, comma in between, and then our arrow is going towards the positive, so I use a positive infinity, and it's going to be round because it's not included. It's technically considered open because you can never reach it. Well, not included because you can never reach it. And then we got the -1 again with the mouth with the half equal sign, or technical terms, less than or equal to. And then we got our x in between, and then we have less than infinity or just the mouth and infinity because infinities are never included. All right, so that's how you go number line to notation. If you think you got it, super great. I love that for you. If you want to skip this next bit, you can. Or if you want to try this next bit on your own, give it a pause and see how you do. So here we go. This first one is closed at -4. So at -4, I'm going to put a closed dot. And you know what? I'm going to just do it all the way across the board. And then we got a less than or equal to sign for our -4 in the inequality. Then we have our 2. It's open because it's got an open bracket or a round bracket. And then we're going to have an open dot at 2. Notice how it is obviously closed and it is obviously open. All right, and then I'm going to have an open symbol for inequalities for the number 2. In my number line, I'm going to make sure I shade in between. Don't forget that. It is still important. And don't forget your X in between. All right, take a moment and pause your video and see if you can try these ones on your own, and we'll come back and see how you do. Okay, so in this one, -4 was closed, 2 was open. So on my number line, I show those open and closed dots, shading in between. If this is closed, then that means we need the mouth with the equal sign, X, and then open 2. Open, open, shade in between because this was open, open. And then this is going to be round, round, but I forgot my comma. Embarrassing. So make sure you put that comma in between or else it looked like -30. All right. This one, it was open, open. Now this went to -infinity. So notice how it's just shaded all the way over. There is no other dot. This 5 was open. Okay. Now the reason why I still wrote the open is more so for over here when we write our inequality, because you got to have your -infinity and it uses the less than sign or the just mouth, and you have your X. And then same thing with the 5 because it was also a round bracket, so we still use the mouth or the less than sign. And the next one here, this one was closed at 0, so it needs a closed dot, which means we use a square bracket. Infinity here, so this is going to be open. So an infinity here needs to have a round bracket because round brackets are open. And then infinity goes on forever, so technically there is not a dot here, it just gets shaded all the way to the arrow. -2 has a square bracket, which means it's closed, and this 2 also has a square bracket, so it's closed. So both of these are going to be closed dots with shades in between. When we write this out, we got -2 with a less than or equal to sign because we're talking about something that's closed, and that's from this square bracket. And then the same thing with the 2, we use the mouth with the half equal sign or the less than or greater to symbol. And with the square bracket, making it closed for that dot, don't forget there's an X in between for inequalities. Now notice this is where our brackets go, is on interval notation. Inequalities are using the mouth. Do not combine them together. I do see students do that, and that's just a minor mistake, but we don't want to make that mistake. All right, next, we got splits. Now, there is a technical notation to use for splits. I'm not going to provide that here, but there is one. So in all the splits, right, notice how there's a bunch of shaded arrows, except for this one. This one's not split, but we'll talk about that one. So in this one, you start with an arrow, you end with an open dot. So let's write that out. We got -5. I'm sorry. Woohoo! I just made the mistake that everybody makes. This is technically a -infinity because it's shading the arrow, and it goes until that -3. Open dot, round bracket. Interval, same thing, except we use our inequalities. I'm sorry, inequality, same thing, except we are using our inequalities. All right, so we just have the mouth or just the less than symbol because it's open, and all of these things mean not included, which is what we're looking for. Same thing with the -3. However, our other friend over here, when we read it from left to right, this is open as well, and it goes to an arrow. So when we write it out, we got 3 with our round bracket going to a positive infinity, this time with the round bracket. And then we got 3 less than or just the mouth, X less than our infinity symbol, which I can't seem to write. There we go. All right. This one, both of these are closed up, but they are not connected. They are split up. So we start with the arrow. We have a closed dot. So using this information, we are negative infinity to -2. This time it's a square bracket. Let's see how obviously square that is. So make sure yours is obviously square. Then we got negative infinity, mouth with an X, just a mouth with a line this time because it's included. And then don't forget it's a -2. Now, again, this one, if you are from a different school or whatever it is, and know my class later in the future, later in the future, comma, we probably won't be writing this as much, but for right now in this particular unit, we'll use it just because it helps with keeping the flow and making sure we don't make any silly boo-boos. All right, here we have closed and we end with an arrow. So we got 4 with a square bracket, obviously square, with a positive infinity because we're on the positive side. 4, we have less than or equal to, or the mouth with the half equal sign, going to infinity where it has just the mouth inside and the X in between. All right, number next, we have an arrow and we have an open dot. So I got negative infinity to 0 with an open dot. Repeat that process over here, but this time we are using our inequalities. So we have just less than symbols or just the mouths, depending on how you want to talk about it. This one, it's closed to the arrow. So we have 1 with a obviously square bracket, comma, to infinity and beyond. Sorry. And then we have 1 less than or equal to, or the mouth with a half equal sign, going to infinity with a mouth or less than sign, however you want to talk about it. Number next, we got, starting with an arrow, ends with a closed dot. So let's write that out. It's a negative infinity arrow, round bracket, comma, -4 is closed, so we use a square bracket. Repeating that process for inequalities, we start with negative infinity, just our mouth, X, and then we have a mouth with a half equal sign, and it's with -4 because once again, it was because of that closed dot. And then here we started with an open dot, going to an arrow. So we have -2, round bracket because it's open, to infinity because it's going towards the positive side and it's open. Repeat that process again for our inequalities. -2, just the mouth with the X because it was open dot. Just the mouth because we have an arrow and arrows are never included, and thus writing this infinity is getting difficult. There you go. This one is probably my favorite. I know it's not split up, but it is important to know how everything is shaded, all the things. So it's going from arrow to arrow. And those of you that are watching this video, bonus for you, because I didn't talk about this in class because I thought about it last minute when I started this video. It technically goes negative infinity to infinity. Oh my gosh. Now there's a fancy word for this, but I like writing it out because I like writing infinities. Now, if that's how we write it for the interval, the inequality is going to look, close up to my hand. Same thing, right? Except now it's just the open inequality notation. Oh boy, that was a long video. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope it was informative. If you skipped around, that's fine too. Till next time.